We need more women in this team. More new blood.
Yeah, she's some girl.
The fairground. It's the Circuit Rodeo, Saturday at 7 and Sunday at 2. A big dance after each show, and the Houston area firefighters red-hot chili cook-off both days. Real rodeo.
Kick 96.
KIKK 96 FM Houston. Now here's Jim Stewart with the news update.
Kick weather, partly cloudy tomorrow, high near 80, low tonight 65, it's currently 75. If you're downtown today near the Texas Commerce Tower Plaza, you might rub shoulders with Hollywood movie superstar Burt Lancaster. But it won't be a Hollywood production. It's a British film called Local Hero, and it's directed by Scott Bill Forsyth. He's the man that made Gregory's Girl, a low-budget movie currently making big box office bucks all over the U.S. You might also see David Putnam, the Oscar-winning producer of Chariots of Fire. And the new movie, Local Hero, is about the oil business. And the British have come to the right place to make a film about oil. I'm Jim Stewart, Kick FM News.
Kick 96.
I'll tell you what we're going to try and do this afternoon. We won't actually be shooting this scene until, I should think, between 5 and 6. But I've got you all here. No, this is fine. I've got you all here. What? The policemen know it's where that blue police car is at the moment. Okay? The scene we're doing today is a scene where Burt Lancaster, who's playing a big oil tycoon in our film, he's being worried up in the very top there where he's got his offices by a man who's following him about a bit. And he wants to get away from him. And at the same time, he decides to leave the country for a while and go off to Scotland to do some business there because his men in Scotland aren't doing the business well enough.
I was approached to play this particular role, this character, by Mr. Putnam. I thought it was just a magnificently written script, terribly funny, with a great deal of soft, light charm. It's very subtle and very humorous, and it's really a story about greed. Well, it's kind of a challenging character for me, and as frankly speaking, at this particular moment, I'm not sure how he ought to be played. The temptation is, because it is a comedy, is to try to be a little funny, and that would be very dangerous. On the other hand, although I feel the character must be played straight, he's a man who's really kind of troubled about what he's doing with his life in spite of all his wealth and all of his achievements, if you will. And so he's kind of at an age in his life where he's beginning to size up what he's particularly done. Nevertheless, you do look for some little area of eccentricity which might lend itself to humor without being, oh, aren't I funny kind of thing. That is to be avoided at all costs. But I just love the script so much, so I like to be a part of it.
It's about a culture clash. It's really about a Texas oil company who comes to Houston to buy up a bay for a new refinery, and their relationship, interrelationship with the locals, and the kind of dance that goes on. So I think it's got a lot to say, and it's funny.
Well, the very first thing that happened was we were in London just finishing the editing on Gregory's Girl, because we did the last couple of months down there. And at the very same time, David Putnam was just finishing Chariots. He was more or less at the same stage. And I went into a tobacconist one day to buy some chewing gum, and he was in there buying a newspaper. So I hadn't seen him for a few months, so he said, "What you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm hanging about here." So that kind of re-established our kind of communication. And then a couple of days later, he phoned me up and said, "What you doing Wednesday night?" I said, "Nothing." He said, "OK, I'll see you at BAFTA at 7 o'clock." So I went down to BAFTA, and he'd organised a screening of Whiskey Galore, you know. So we sat in, it was just David and Linda, his secretary, and myself, and we sat and watched Whiskey Galore, and that was very nice. And we came out and said that was quite a nice film, and he said cheerio, and we went away. But so I knew that something was underway, and I knew vaguely that he was thinking about maybe we should make a film together, and maybe it should be Scottish, you know. So that's really how it started. And then a few days after that, we actually sat down and talked about it. I think he's just as kind of shy as I am, really, in that kind of way. But eventually we started talking about it, and the idea of a film based on the oil thing and all that came about.
All this is one shot of him as if he's just come through that door there, the one from left, walks down these steps, he hurries along, and gets into his limousine, which will be parked where that police car is at the moment, and the car pulls away.
Down that way so we can get Harper Boulevard, yeah?
Can you walk along using your telephone?
Sure.
Yes. I think, as long as Bill's happy with this, I think it's rather a nice little thing going on, that there's somebody walking along here, maybe just over there, telephoning at the same time. I'll have to check that with Bill. We want to grab before it gets too dark, and this side of the area has got to look as if it's for real. Can all the background people now take their first positions, please? Stand by, and action!
We used to watch the takes on a little video monitor, and sometimes it would be quite odd when I looked through the monitor and saw Burt Lancaster. I thought I was watching a movie at home, you know. I said, "What's he doing in my picture?" Cut. He was terrific to work with. I was a little bit in trepidation of him, obviously, at first, because apart from anything else, I hadn't really used a lot of adult actors in anything I'd done before. There was a few in Gregory still who were good, but they were mates in a way, so it really wasn't a good yardstick.
Cut. Right, back to your first mark, please.
That was the very first shot that we'd worked on together. The scene where he has to burst through a couple of policemen, and the policemen also were quite timid of him. So I was saying to these cops, "OK, it's Burt Lancaster, but when he comes towards you, just you stay together and let him force his way through you." But the first couple of takes, they would ease themselves apart. So eventually he chimed in as well, and he said, "Look, guys, just, let me do it." And he saw me watching him do this, and he said, "Oh, we don't mind me talking to the other performers. We want our relationship to go well, so, if you don't want me to do that, just tell me." Even at that level, he was caring about the thing, caring about me, of all people,
Hold the traffic now, please. Stand by, everybody. Action!
It was a sweet relationship. It was good. Because I think everyone was slightly worried about how it would go. And it was also a big number, lots of people and lots of, controlling the crowds and stuff like that. It was something I'm not great at, because I tend to like to hide behind the camera and anything else that there is to hide behind. So for that reason, it was also a big number for me.
We're just checking it on the tape.
Okay, that's beautiful. Yeah, lovely. Okay, great. Lovely. Good. How's it get? Terrific.
Part with you in mind. Well, he never told me that. Because I've asked him twice. I said, "How do I play this part?" And he hasn't been able to tell me.
How do you feel about playing?
Also, I don't understand him when he talks.
Well, when I started to write the character, Harper, I just began to hear his voice saying the words. And he has a very distinctive style of delivery. Hearing his voice in my head actually began to affect the dialogue. And I think in one or two scenes I actually wrote dialogue which sounds like his dialogue, the way he would say things. And once I had the image of Lancaster in my mind with that character, it just wouldn't go away. It just persisted throughout the whole script. But I remember the first time I met him, they found out that he was in Rome, this particular day. So go to Rome and Neil, you see. So it's just a complete wild goose because he was going to be in London at the end of the week. I didn't know that, so I ended up meeting him in Rome. That was the first time I met him. And we talked about the script we met, and he could speak Italian, so he ordered some espresso coffee and all that. And we talked about the script, and I was a little bit wary about one thing I had learned by that time was that actors tend to, no matter how much they would pretend not to, they tend to personally identify with the characters that they're going to play. And I had twigged this, and so I was a little bit wary about telling them how exactly I felt about Harper, because in my opinion Harper is a madman. He's insane, and all that the scenes in the film do are just show different sides of his insanity. So rather than, you know, come out and, because he was saying, how do you want me to play this guy, you know, and I was saying, well, he's a very complex character, you know, every scene is very different, you know, and we see a different side to his character. And I would go on like that for a wee while, and then he would say, yeah, but how do you want me to play him? And I said, well, you know. So eventually we kind of stumbled through a conversation like that, and he was still a bit unsatisfied, I could tell. Apart from learning later on that he hadn't understood a word that I said because of my accent, but he was still a bit perplexed, so he just kind of, he finished his coffee and he thought for a minute or two, and he said, well, Bill, you know, I suppose if I can play Moses, I can play this guy.
What is that jam thing? You always got a jam butty in your hand.
Jam what? Called breakfast.
A jam butty.
Jam butty.
It's a sandwich in Yorkshire.
Call it a piece and jam.
Huh?
Call it a piece and jam.
A piece and jam?
A piece and jam.
Do you?
A piece of bread is called a piece, and you put jam on it, it's called a piece of jam.
This is called a J&T, Jack and Tie.
It's quite a good thing for him to, in order to actually learn the process, he's actually going to be right in the middle of it. Yeah. Okay, any other problems?
Right, Mike, say when you're ready. Mike, keep the chatter down a bit around here now, please. Okay, Mike? Turn over.
Okay. And action. And cut. Okay.
Pretty nice, that was all.
Yeah. Oh, that's fine. It would just be like 4 or 5 seconds or something. Right.
The great things, I think, are the fact that the people have come together so well. We have some very experienced English-based technicians and some less experienced but extremely willing and enthusiastic Scottish-based technicians. And for me, that's one of the great bonuses.
There seems to be Cockneys and Glaswegians.
It does. It's a metropolitan film, a wee bit. I think there's one poor Edinburgher, but he's persisting.
51, take 2. Here we go.
It was something that David and I kind of understood from the word go, that we would use as many people in Scotland that were available and that there was jobs for. And it meant 1 or 2 people, in terms of Gregory's Girl, slipping back a grade because, you know, obviously without money, the financiers needed, you know, kind of guarantees of professional status and all that stuff. But everyone, I think, benefited from working with other people, you know, who had more experience and stuff like that. So it worked out very well indeed. Well, I'm actually trying to cue it so that Betty's line comes just as we're coming to the rest.
Perfect.
She was just a tease a wee bit. Yeah, she was just a tease a wee bit later, but I think we'll get lucky. Yeah.
Okay. They must have gone slower that time because you ended early, eh?
Yeah.
Right, back to your first one.
Right there?
Yeah.
Tracking back. There we are. Tracking viewing.
Here we go then, background action.
responsibility are more everything behind the leading actors, so that while he's worrying about directing and organising what the leading actors do, I have to think that everything behind that is accurately and well done. Whereas he's always really concentrating on what the actors say in the foreground, and he composes all the scenes and all that sort of thing.
Very good. Cut.
Cut.
Good, fine for me.
And in many ways, I'm just his general help. I mean, in everything that he hasn't got time to worry about or think about, I have to look after.
Right, fellas, that's completion of shooting in the States. Everybody off to Scotland now, please, where we will commence shooting again on Tuesday.
The exteriors we had to build, like the church and Ben's shack, we were building there in below freezing conditions, and the snow and the hail were absolutely horizontal across the beach, and the wind was so high that in fact it one day was lifting scaffolding boards 26 feet over the top of the church, and we had to start work on it. It was really getting extremely dangerous. When you get a situation like that, you're not working in one place or the other, you're just being held up all the way down the line.
How about the weather during actual shooting? How does that affect you if it's bad?
In that case, you have to have an interior set prepared for them to shoot on. As far as the production go, they always try and schedule some interior to give them weather cover during an exterior period. But in fact, we've been extremely lucky. We've had amazing weather here. If anything, it's been almost too good. And some of the shots that we did on the beach look a bit like the Bahamas and less like Scotland.
We were working today, and we were shooting, and I kept thinking, I can't be working. This is impossible that I'm working here. People are paying me to sit here on this beach and act.
All the acting boards should be in this seat down here.
You meet somebody like Lancaster and you know the talent, you've seen it. The confidence is quiet and easy, not assertive. He was very enthusiastic about the script. He told me that. He said, you see, he's free now to do anything he wants to do. And he had selected this and read it. And he told me, he said, immediately I saw this, I'll do this.
There was a particular scene outside Ben's shack on the beach that you were doing together, and you both seemed to be having a whale of a time.
Yeah, he suggested this thing. We knew it wouldn't actually be heard. There was no written dialogue. So he did this thing that Fellini did with non-actors of saying to them, say, uno, due, tre, or you say, and we just recited numbers just for a laugh. Because everything's so serious, you're apt to get very serious. So for a laugh, we just said 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And we knew it would only be a noise in the background. So it made us laugh, which we were meant to be doing.
But gets to Scotland, he finds this crazy little fellow Ben. He discusses with this character the idea that he's interested in cosmic things and the stars, with the idea that there's another kind of universe and another world out there. As his rather interesting mind begins to work in this direction, he's a little bit self-facing and unsure of himself in explaining that. He thinks that maybe he's a nut for feeling that way. Now, in a sense, he's able to say, by God, this is really what I want to do. That's what I've been fooling around with all the time and never had the courage to face it. So he immediately becomes a kind of a free spirit. In other words, Ben is a little like what he would have wanted to be. Ben's life, Ben's values of life, or something that, because he's got all the fame, all the money, all the oil, and he's really not a happy man deep down.
Just as the Burt Lancaster part is a power in the material sense, my character's a power in the non-material sense. I've got nothing and therefore I have power. He's got everything and therefore he has power.
I just treated Fulton like the way that I treat every other actor, and that is I tend to... I don't really know what you're supposed to do with an actor, so I either tend to talk too much or not talk enough. I think it turns out that most actors don't really know whether they're supposed to be talked at a lot or a little. So everything's experimental, really. I don't think anyone knows really what a director's supposed to be or what an actor's supposed to be. So we kind of stumble around it and talk about it a bit, and then if we get anything to say, we talk about it a bit more. He likes being directed because he likes something to kind of hit off against, you know. And so that was quite nice because he was good to direct, you know, because he enjoyed being directed.
McIntyre's the name, and I guess everyone calls him Mac. He's not really Scottish, though. He's a Hungarian, apparently, and can't pronounce his last name. And his parents thought that McIntyre was American. So I'm McIntyre, and I get sent here because my boss, who's played by Burt Lancaster, thinks I'm Scottish. And I have a clue who you people are. And that's McIntyre.
What kind of a guy is he?
Well, I think he's very hyper-business oriented, very interested in material things, and so therefore he's surrounded himself with objects, and I think he's a bit removed from himself, and that's what's going to happen to him, I think, when he arrives in Scotland.
Mac, a young oil executive, is summoned to the presence of Happer. It's the first time he's ever been up here. He's been in the other executive boardrooms and is expecting the same thing. And he arrives, the lift doors open, and his mind is completely blown because there's nothing to do with oil at all in here. But by the time he reaches this point, he's completely unnerved. Mrs. Wyatt, who is at the desk, is the sort of person who can dominate totally with her eyes. And he's shot straight off upstairs to the Happer Emporium. And this is Felix Happer's office. This is the inner sanctum, and a great rarity for anybody ever to come up here. It's not only his office, but it's his private life as well. Happer's sitting behind the desk when Mac walks in. And here we've got his kitchen. And it's exactly as it was when the interior designer walked out. Happer never really uses it. All he does is cook scrambled eggs. He's got all this incredible equipment in here. Happer's library, which we assume he's had imported from England. But in fact, this is very much just a background to show that this part of the set here is his private apartments. All these doors are automatic. Can you shut the library doors, please? And these open and close in front of Mac. Everything is controlled from a panel inside Happer's drawer. Happer never works at all. He's above all that. All he has is just the 3 pencils on his desk, which are dusted every day. But
staircase. But in reality, you built the reception area in Houston and the office in Fort William. Now, why did you do that?
Well, there's 2 reasons. One is we have Mr. Lancaster with us for a very short time, and with the weather we've had, we needed a weather cover set. And the other reason, basically, is that the place that we were hoping to film in Houston, we were unable to obtain permission for, because they were actually preparing offices in at the time. And we could find no other space that was large enough to accommodate the size of the set that we had to build. So we've ended up in a distillery warehouse which is actually slightly too small for the set we've ended up building. It's a very tight fit.
What other problems has that given you?
Basically, being able to work around the set has been a nightmare for the people who are involved in the construction. They can't get above it or around it without lying flat in their stomachs.
Out of the windows of the set in Houston, you can see Houston, but you can't see it from here.
We've done that by using a translight backing, which is like a huge transparency, but we've blown it up to 54 feet by 18, and it's lit behind. And in fact, it seems to work very well.
The idea of a film about oil in Scotland it's an idea that has probably circulated around every Scottish filmmaker's head at one time or another, you know, because it's one of these ideas that's there, you can't ignore it. And it had passed through Marbury, and I must admit, and you know, come out the other end, and I was quite happy, you know, not to think about it. But then when David made me think about it, the first thought that I had was to kind of divert the idea away from the hardware end of things, you know, the oil rigs and Aberdeen, Boomtown and all that, because that seemed to me the most obvious way to go. And also, I'd spent too many years climbing off and on oil rigs and ships and making documentaries anyway, and I didn't want to do that.
I found a cutting in a newspaper about a man who'd eventually gone to be NOC, but who started out in an island negotiating an amazing oil deal with the Americans. And it seemed to be an intriguing angle. And Bill felt, as he said, that, I mean, any Scots filmmaker who didn't try or at least think about doing a film about oil was crazy. So it seemed to be a nice way of tackling the subject, was taking a Mr. Deeds Goes to Town-ish approach to a major subject.
Did you both arrive at the subject matter yourselves, or was it Bill who did it?
No, Bill went off, I think, for 6 or 7 months, literally with my little clipping, and came back with a 2-page treatment, which he'd also hired a researcher from a local newspaper up here, looking for this sort of story, and we'd come up with several variants on the tale, and then from those stories he built his treatment, and from the treatment built the screenplay.
The first idea I had was what a massive amount of money would do to a small community, how it would affect the people.
Did you use any empirical examples of that in your research?
The Beverly Hillbillies, I think, was the main example, because I always remember the line from that when Jethro and his father went back to tell Grandma that some people were interested in buying the land, and she said, "Oh, what did they offer you?" And he said, "Oh, they offered us 50 of some new kind of dollar." And she said, "What kind of dollar is that?" And he said, "It's millions or something like that." So they're going to get 50 of these newfangled dollars called millions.
Every now and then, when I read the 2-page treatment, I knew it was a movie, you know? That doesn't happen very often. You don't often read things that short and think, oh, I can see the film. Quite clearly a film. Clearly a film for more than one reason. It was clearly a film because it's a film that could be made on a budget. It was clearly a film because it utilised what Bill was best at. It wasn't him attempting to work out a character. So I think in every respect what he did was he worked to a brief, and the brief was sound enough to be financeable.
Immediately that we had the final version of the script, we started looking at locations and stuff like that, while David very quietly and in a way that didn't bother me went away and found the money. I mean, I've got a lot of respect for producers now, because, you know, they, at a certain stage, I mean, people think that, you know, writers and, you know, creative people like that are the ones who are slightly insane or are imbalanced, but in fact, for a producer has actually got to manifest more faith and more kind of manic faith in a script at that stage, because he's got to go and talk to total strangers who aren't in any way committed to the project and convince them that it's worthwhile doing. And that just takes a form of madness that I don't think I would be capable of, you know. We
sent the second draft screenplay, I think it was, to the people who one would reasonably have expected to finance it. And we got some expected knockbacks, and we got some very unexpected knockbacks. 1 or 2 shocks, really, from people who didn't respond to the screenplay, which was bewildering, because every actor, for example, we'd approached had loved it, and Burt Lancaster loved the screenplay. Everyone we wanted really wanted to be in it, off the page. So either they were wrong, or the sources of finance were wrong. I mean, there was such a clear schism between the reaction of the creative community and the reaction of the financial community.
And how long did it take you to raise the money?
9 months. 9 months.
What's your role in the making of this picture?
Well, David Putnam and I once discussed this at an early date, partly because I wasn't terribly sure of the same. And he made the point that he would raise the money if I could spend it. So basically I'm trying to spend the money as intelligently as possible.
Most of the shooting takes part around the harbour area. And the Pennant Inn, which we don't want to look as a hotel, we have to paint the sign out on the roof, take the sign down and turn it into 3 cottages. Just round the corner we're building the end of a Cayley Hall. And we have to break down most of the white on buildings because it stands out too much, and a lot of the colours are too bright, the blues and the greens. We're going to break those down. All of this area will be dressed out with boats and keel boats and so on. Fish nets all the way along the quay. Well, I have my own labour, but I will be using some local labour. Possibly the lads who are painting the hut down here.
When I was writing the script, I thought that I knew Scotland, and so I thought that I had created a place which would be easy to find. But it transpired that this place, the way that I described it in the script, actually didn't exist. So it was about a full year of looking for it, actually. Eventually we solved it by sewing 2 different parts of the country together. I don't know whether that's cheating to tell people that. You don't really notice in the film. So, there's so many cheats in the film anyway, that's a minor one. So we used a beach from one part of the country and a village from another. And in the film they represent one bay. It took a long while to find Peter, and I must have interviewed about 50 or 60 American actors. And it was a joke because I had a physical character that I knew the kind of physical person he was, but the casting lady in America had given me every kind of possible variation. But in fact, I didn't actually meet Peter in that first kind of interview thing. It was someone in London who had mentioned his name to me when I told him what I was up to. And I saw him in the second shipment. By that time, I'd seen Animal House film that was in, and I saw that he was pretty perfect for it.
Stand back, shoot, quiet, please, everybody. Everybody watching, be very quiet, just while we record the dialogue on film. Right, turn over. Very quick. Action.
I was recommended by a woman named Joan Goodman, who's a writer. Bill had made a couple of trips to New York or to California, and they were still looking, and she said, "Have you seen me?" And they hadn't. And then Bill came over, and I had read the script, and we met and chatted for a while. It was pretty easy. Actually, when I read the script, I had a feeling that I would either get it right away or I would not get it right away. It would be over.
How difficult do you find it operating in a group surrounding Bill Forsyth? Obviously tight-knit people, worked with each other a lot, know each other well. You must be something of an outsider.
I don't feel that way. I've been away from home for almost 3 months now, and it's about as relaxing an experience as I've ever had. And I think I have to give Bill a lot of credit, but certainly the people that he's hired are the best. Now, this is absolutely one of the most extraordinary groups of people I've ever worked with, on every level, in every department, not just the department heads, but the ones who are assisting. And the same thing with the actors, the company of actors, from the person who has the most lines to that who has the least, is really superb. So it's very easy. It's not hard at all.
I feel very free to disagree with the way a scene might be going, and just as free to hear Bill take it a different way. It's the best kind of freedom, I think. He's willing to take time to work out differences to get the scene so that two people are talking about the same things.
No, it's just a really hard. It depends on what it looks like in the camera.
This looks very good. They look very good.
This one.
What you just did. I'll tell you what, let's shoot one like this, and then you can examine it on the telly. Right, one more rehearsal then.
Well, my character's called Ricky, and he's a tearaway. He's a village tearaway. He roars up and down the village on his
Stand by,
motorbike.
turn the camera. Action, Gordon.
It's quite a small part.
Are you disappointed?
No, not at all. I'm just happy to be working on this with Bill again and David Putnam and things like this. You know, it's amazing. Burt Lancaster. Burt Lancaster. Oh, it's incredible.
What do you think of the script of Local Hero?
It's great. It's really good. Really, really good.
Does it live as much as the script of Gregory's Girl did?
I think it does, but in a different way. It's not the same. It involves a lot more characters as well. It's not a kind of the naive schoolboy type thing, but it does live. It does in its own sense. That was quite sensible, wasn't it? That sounded quite as if I know what I'm talking about.
And how's Bill reacting making this film compared with Gregory's Girl?
I don't know. I haven't really had much of a chance to talk to him because he's really busy on it. But he seems to be doing okay. All the actors think he's great. He's spot on. But I don't know, because he's really busy. He doesn't get much of a chance to sort of socialise. So poor guy.
So, do you think you're over the hump?
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
It feels like that anyway.
Yeah.
We've seen enough stuff to know that it's there anyway.
How regularly do you see rushes?
Not very often, maybe once, twice a week, something like that. But it's not ideal because we don't have a good screen, so you're just looking at things on a little Steenbeck.
We started off this production at our base at Elstree Studios, and it was decided that this was too remote from the production to analyse any instant problems that arise. So my two assistants and I suddenly found that we were transported to Bonnie, Scotland, and after a spell in Fort William, we've now ended up in this palatial public bar, which is actually quite palatial. It's bigger than the premises we usually work in, and we're settling in as though it was home from home.
So exactly why have you got to be on the spot?
Well, when you're working on a location picture where the locations are important, the weather's important, and you've got so many artists who have to come and go, any delay in deciding whether things work or not can be disastrous. If it took a week to decide that they'd got everything they needed except one vital close-up, then all the artists got to be called back, and the weather's probably changed by then. So if we're able to roughly cut things together almost as soon as they're shot, and then tell Bill, look, I think that works, but this bit here needs an extra close-up. Can you possibly get it while everybody's still there? That saves enormous time and money. Less troublesome if we took a little bit of the gap after Mac's reply and put it before it, so that so it goes in there. So the,
Yeah, we're flying here when we can. Right, mate, you've been gone a couple of days.
just sort of split the difference
So that his
it's
Mike's
not-
is nearer his line, yeah.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Ed, the hotel manager, sent a letter to some people, and I got a reply from David Putnam immediately. And it was a really delightful thing to get a script like that, you know, and to realise that it couldn't be better in a way. Of course, since doing it, I found that it could be better.
What made you want to?
I don't know, just something about music, I suppose. Just with music and movies.
Is this your first film score?
Oh yeah. I'll think about that. Nice to good things about it is that it's not just stuff. And we've done things here. I might personally think are better than what will be used in the film, and that's probably what we. You know, you somebody else. It's there. So that's good for me.
As the writer, no, as the writer, I don't think the guy who directed did a very great job at all. I'd just like to register that complaint even now.
As a director,
as a director, I don't think the guy's script was really what cracked up to. You know, I think there was some major flaws in it that nobody spotted. But as a director, I think I did the best I could with a fairly ordinary script, and I think it's looking okay now. Yeah.